Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is so wonderful to get to be together this morning in our Torah portion for this week. We read about the namesake of this community, Yisrael. It comes from the story of Jacob wrestling with an Ish, some sort of figure that he grapples with the night before he is going to encounter someone he has not seen for a very long time. And in that wrestling, he asks for a blessing. And the blessing itself is, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Yisrael. For you have struggled with beings divine and human, and you have prevailed. That is what we do here. We don't just struggle, but we grapple, we wonder, and we ask questions, and we know that one of the most powerful ways to ask questions is to sing them, to wonder about them, to take the words and place them right in front of ourselves so that we can wonder about them, just like we wonder about our lives. This morning, we will take part in the act of Yisrael, of struggling, and again, of wondering. This holiday of Shabbat is an opportunity to step back. And whereas we might go through the week day after day with things whizzing by, this morning we stop and we simply ask the questions. We reflect, we wonder, and of course, we enjoy. And so welcome. Welcome everyone who is here to stop and reflect, to enjoy, and to see not just the questions, but of course the beautiful things in our world as well. Some of us, I imagine, may be here not just to celebrate this day of Shabbat, but to celebrate as a young member of our community takes her first steps as an adult. So I'll mention in just a moment a little bit more about that, but I want to welcome friends and family from far and wide, both here and online this morning, who are here to celebrate both this day of Shabbat and our young adult as she steps into this role in our community. And so welcome. Everyone who is here, not just online, but I'm not just here in our synagogue, but online as well on YouTube and Facebook, and on our stream at tilb.org, which is a slightly higher quality stream. And I also mention it because you'll find that when we get to the very end of our service, we'll be inviting names for our mourner's prayer, our mourner's Kaddish. We won't be able to read the names that you have that you might place in the chat on Facebook and on YouTube, although I do invite you to say Shabbat Shalom. But if you go on to tilb.org, you will find the opportunity to place names that we can read out loud. And welcome to everyone who is here. Welcome to everyone who has lifted up our young people and brought them to this moment. And so good morning to Jay Al-Hadaf, one of our teachers in our Torah Center, and a welcome as well to David York, who lifts up our music, our experience, our service this morning. It is always a gift to lead with you, David. Even as you are there on the piano when we are not making eye contact, it does feel like we are standing here together. Thank you. And I do have to give a little bit of, you might have guessed it, some housekeeping about this service that we get to share this morning. So the first is, if anybody happens to have brought, they make these wonderful cellular devices these days. If anybody happens to have a phone with them, just a gentle reminder to take out our phones now and set them on silent, so that we can have this morning without that particular distraction. We can fully be in this moment together. I want to mention also about Los Angeles County Health Guidelines. The guidelines are such, given the time that we are in, that we are asking everyone to remain masked throughout the service, and that is not just masked over our mouths, but our noses as well, so that we can create a space that is not just emotionally and spiritually safe, but physically safe as well, of course. And you may be wondering, as I am saying that is all fine and good, but Cantor Cooper and I are standing here and we don't have masks on. That is because we are vaccinated, and we have also very, very recently taken a COVID test and have tested negative. But as an additional precaution, we've cleared this first row here this morning so that there is an additional distance. Anyone who is here on the bima this morning and has taken their mask off is someone who has taken a rapid test this morning and has not only had the COVID vaccine, but has tested negative this morning. Just a couple other notes. The first is that to follow along in the service, you'll find a pamphlet here beautifully put together by Sarina's family with some of the different honors and some of the different information about what is taking place this morning. And in addition, we'll be calling out page numbers in our prayer book. So in the seat back in front of you, you'll find the prayer book for our service this morning. And I invite you to notice a couple of things. The first is that on the right-hand side, there are the words for the prayers that we'll be offering and transliteration in English as well. Underneath, there's an English translation of those very same words. And on the left-hand side of the page are interpretive readings. We know that we all come into this space of celebration, this space of rest, and this Shabbat in different ways. And so I invite, as our hearts might wander throughout this service, that is totally fine. And if it can be helpful, as our hearts wander, I invite us to let our eyes wander around the page as well. You'll find additionally commentary on the very bottom of those same pages, hopefully offering some insight and more ways into these prayers this morning. And so for some of us, it is going to be meaningful to sing along to the words that are in our prayers. For others, simply humming along to the melodies is what is going to bring us into this space. And for still others, simply letting these prayers and melodies wash over us. For all of us, I invite us to allow this morning to be one of rest and of celebration. Well, I'll mention also just that we have many people here who are here to celebrate, as I mentioned, Sarina taking these first steps, becoming an adult in this community, and she has been learning for many months and years to come to this moment. And it is not just enough to learn and come to a moment like this. It is not just enough to stand here at the bima and offer these words after a lot of hard work to offer them in, yes, a foreign language. It is also very important to have the people who are important to us celebrating with us. We are each a part of this celebration for you this morning, Sarina. And so it is with that I invite us to say Matovu. How beautiful is this community, as the prophet Balaam in the Torah looked out at the community and said, what a beautiful place. What a beautiful community, Matovu. So too do we echo those words this morning. I invite us to turn to page 74 of our prayer books. Let us sing together.
Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, ma tovu, mishkenotecha Yisrael, mishkenotecha Yisrael, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, ma tovu, va'ani berov hastecha avo vetecha eshtachave el ha'chal kodshecha be'iratecha tovu. Ohalecha Yaakov, Ohalecha Yaakov, ma tovu, ma tovu. Ohalecha Yaakov, Ohalecha Yaakov, ma tovu.
Well, we have various different ways of tying moments together in our lives. And perhaps one of the ways that we even create meaning in our community, in our lives, is to draw those sacred moments together. And so this morning, Sarina has the opportunity to begin a practice. And that is the practice of placing a talit on her shoulders, a talit that she can use throughout the rest of her life to tie other moments into this one. And just as she takes this talit and wraps it around her shoulders, it is like each of us offering a hug to you, Sarina. And so to present your talit to you this morning, I'd like to call up your parents, Michelle and John, and Sarina, of course, as we begin this part of our service.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahidatev b'tzitzit.
Amen. Not kosher without a kiss. Yeah. Please go ahead.
I hereby accept the obligation of fulfilling these mitzvot as commanded in our Torah. You shall be holy, for I, your God, am holy. You shall not render an unjust decision. Leave something of what you possess to the poor. Do not hate your fellow human being. Judge your neighbor fairly. Do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. Do not gossip or spread rumors. Do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. Love your neighbor as yourself. I am Adonai, your God. We continue with the Baruch on page 108. Please rise in body or in spirit. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Yai, lie, 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 lie. Yai, lie, 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 lie. Yai, lie, 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 lie. Yai, lie, 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 lie. Yai, lie, 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 lie. Barechu et Adonai Hamevorah. Baruch Adonai Hamevorah, Hamevorach le'olam ba'ed. Hamevorach, Hamevorach le'olam ba'ed. Please join in the Hebrew on page 110. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, yotzer or uvarei hosheh, ostei shalom uvarei et hakol, hama'ir la'aretz v'ladarim alecha, v'rachamim uvtuvo ma'asecha mahadesh b'kol yom tomid ma'asecha bereshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai kulam b'chokma asita, melach ha'aretz v'kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al sheva ma'asecha Yaakov, Yadeha, Val Mechore, or She'asita Yefarucha Sela, or Hadash al Tzion Ta'ir. V'nizkei kulam me'arach la'or. Baruch atah Adonai yotzer hamarot. You are praised who rolls out the rough, raw clay of the universe into delicate vessels of light. And from nothing at all, we could perceive in a world that is turned old, a shimmering new creation right before our eyes, made this moment just for us. How much of life reveals your presence? How much Torah unfolds from each new flower, from each new wave that breaks on the sea? You are praised who forms from the clay that cloaks our lives, the delicate vessels which contain our life. We continue with Ahava Rabbah on page 112.
Ahava Rabbah Ahavtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chemla Gedola V'Tera Chamalta Aleinu Ba'avur Avotenu Ve'imotenu Shebatru Vecha Vatlamdem Chukei Chaim Ken Techonenu Utlamdenu. V'ha'erinenu betoratecha v'dabek lebeinu b'mitzvotecha v'yached levavenu le'ahava u'yira et shemecha lo nevosh lo nikalem lo Ha'erinenu betoratecha v'dabek lebeinu v'mitzvotecha v'yached levavenu le'ahava u'yira et shemecha.
We continue with the Shema on page 114. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elokecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'eile asher anohi metzabecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levavecha v'dibartam bam v'shivtecha v'veitecha uvlechbecha baderech Uvshokbecha, uvkumecha, uvshartam leot al yedecha, vehayu letotafot beineinecha, uvtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tiskerut, hayisitem et kol mitzvotai, v'ditem kedoshim le'elokechem. Ani Adonai Elokechem, asher hotzietem mi'eretz Mitzrayim, lehiod lachem le'elokechem. Ani Adonai Elokechem. Please join me on page 122 for the Mi Chamocha.
Yai lai 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 lai
lie, 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 yai, lie, 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 lie. Yai, lie, 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 yai, lie, 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 lie. Yai, lie, 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 yai, lie, 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 lie. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh.
שיר החדשה שיפו גאולים לשמך שפת היום יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. יאי לי 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 יאי לי 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 יאי לי 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 יאי לי 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 יאי לי 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 לי. צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל ופדחנו מך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
We continue with the Amidah on page 124. Please rise in body or in spirit. Adonai sefatayv tifta ufia yitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Eloheinu Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, V'zocher Hasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo ve'Ahava, Melech Hoser Umashiach Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai,
Mechaye hakol atah, Rav lechoshia, Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem, Mechalkel chaim v'chesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umidol melach, Melech memid umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emana tale hachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol.
We continue with the Kedusha on page 130. Let us sanctify your name on earth as it is sanctified in the heavens above, as it is written by your prophet, Holy, holy, holy is Adonai Tsevaot. God's presence fills the whole earth.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדשים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות.
מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. Hallelujah.
Please be seated. We are gifts and we are blessings. We are history in song. We are hope and we are healing. We are learning to be strong. We are words and we are stories. We are pictures of the past. We are carriers of wisdom, not the first and not the last. Ledor vador nagid godlecha. Ledor vador we protect this chain. From generation to generation, Ledor vador, these lips will praise your name. You can sing along. Looking back on the journey that we carry in our hearts, from the shadow of the mountain to the waters that would part. We are blessed and we are holy. We are children of your way. And the words that bring us meaning, we will have the strength to say. Ledor vador nagid godlecha. Ledor vador we protect this chain. From generation to generation, Ledor vador, these lips will praise your name. You're doing such a great job. I'm so proud of you.
We continue on page 132. Please join us in singing Vishamru.
I'll just mention, to help us sing Vishamru this morning, I'd like to call back up to the bima Jenna Curry to sing Vishamru with us together. Please.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. B'nei Yisrael oti le'olam. השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
ששת ימין עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Please turn to page 137 for Ritzeh. Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu bechemla Yisrael, utfilatam bechava tekabel, uti laaretz tamid, avodat Yisrael amecha, baruch atah Adonai, shodcha ledacha bayira benovda. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to share its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate amongst the nations. Make contentment fall within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of our world. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name sanctify every home and every heart. Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarach et amo Yisrael b'shalcho.
Please continue silently with the readings that are either in the pages of your Siddur or with whatever is in your heart, and we'll gather together in a couple minutes on page 140. Sim shalom tova uvracha, chaim chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Sim shalom tova uvracha, chaim chen v'chesed Verachamim. Sim shalom tova uvracha, chaim chen v'chesed verachamim. Sim shalom tova uvracha, chaim chen v'chesed verachamim. Sim shalom tova uvracha, חיים חן וחסד ורחמים, שים שלום טובה וברכה, חיים חן וחסד ורחמים, שים שלום טובה וברכה, חיים חן וחסד ורחמים, שים שלום טובה וברכה, חיים חן וחסד ורחמים.
Well, in just a moment, we are going to continue with our Torah service. As we warm our hearts up this morning to this experience of learning, of being together on this day of Shabbat, this day of celebration, we warm ourselves up to this moment. This opportunity to learn and read from our Torah, which very likely was actually the original Torah, the original service itself, everything else growing up around it. Words that have been passed down generation to generation, and this morning, these words are Sarina's. And so in just a moment, I'm going to actually invite up the generations of her family, but first I want to give just a note about the act of taking the Torah out of the ark. We are going to do what is called hakafot. Literally, it's dancing with the Torah. We're not going to quite dance, although if you feel like dancing this morning, by all means. But we are going to parade the Torah around our sanctuary this morning. If you don't see the Torah coming by you immediately right now, don't worry about it. It will come by just about everyone here this morning. And because we are in a different time right now, whereas at another time we might be inviting everyone to give hugs, as we all know we want to give each other hugs, I'm going actually to invite us to simply just say Mazel Tov to one another and to Sarina and her family as they make their way around our sanctuary. And it is customary as well to place a hand on the Torah and then to kiss our hand that has touched the Torah. I would ask that we first place our hand on the Torah and then kiss our hands for the very same reasons, of course. Well, it is now my absolute joy to call up members of Sarina's family as we pass the Torah down the generations. And so I'd like to call up Sarina and her parents, John and Michelle. I'd like to also call up, just to be ready, waiting in the wings, for Sarina's aunts and uncle, Kendra Moe, Kelsey Rowan, and Mitchell Rowan. Again, not yet, but when we get to the podium, after we march around the Torah, I'll invite you to come up. I'll mention it again then. The rest of the congregation, I'd like to invite to please rise in body or in spirit.
Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'asecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha bechol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch le'olam vad Adonai oz le'amo yitein Adonai yevarech et hamo v'shalom Av ha'rachamim heitiv av ertzonecha et Zion Tivne chomot Yerushalayim Tivne chomot Yerushalayim Ki vecha levad batachnu Melech eram v'nisa Adon Olamim. Ki mitzion teitze Torah, Ki mitzion teitze Torah, Udevar Adonai mirushalayim. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Le'amo Yisrael, Bikdushato.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlu l'Adonai iti, unromem Shemo yachtav. Lecha Adonai hagedula, v'hagevura, v'hatiferet, v'hanetzach, v'hahod. Ki chol bashamayim uvaretz, ki chol bashamayim uvaretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlacha, v'haminaseh lechol erosh. Al shlosha devarim, Al shlosha devarim, Al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omed. Al shlosha devarim, Al shlosha devarim, Al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omed. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al shlosha devarim, Al shlosha devarim, Al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omed. Al shlosha devarim, Al shlosha devarim, Al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omed. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al haTorah.
I wonder if I can invite up the uncle and aunts, Kendra Moe and Kelsey Roan and Mitchell Roan to help us.
Al shlosha devarim, Al shlosha devarim, Al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omed. Al shlosha devarim, Al shlosha devarim, Al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omed.
That's perfect. Mazel tov. Thank you. Return to your seats. Please be seated. While we give Sarina a moment to find her place in the Torah, and we readjust this so that it a bit easier for her. While we give Sarina a moment to find her place in the Torah, I'd like to share just a little bit about this particular scroll. Now, this scroll actually comes to our community from the Queen Mary, where for many years it was part of a sanctuary on that particular vessel. As people would travel around the world, and even some members of our community, both indirectly in the United States, coming to the United States to find a new home, and directly members of the Temple Israel community, while they were immigrating to the United States, prayed over this very same Torah. A reminder to each of us that as we make our way around the world, as we find home in so many different places, anytime we open up the words of our sacred stories, our sacred scripture, anytime we read these words, we are home. We have different aliyot, different members of Sarina's circle that we'd like to call up for the various aliyot, the various honors of reading the Torah. And so for our first aliyah, I'd like to call up Sarina's cousin, Marie Lindner.
Nala Amod, Hamishpacha Laliyah HaTorah.
Just before? Just the one before. Yeah, okay. You're ready. Through the mask. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam. Oh, that's me already. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mechol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vayivater Yaakov levado, vayavik ish imo ad alo tashachar vayar ki lo yachol lo vayiga bechaf yerecho vateka kaf yerech Yaakov beheyavko imo vayomer shalcheni ki Allah Vayomer hashachar, vayomer lo ashalechacha, ki im ben rachtani.
We continue now with the English translation after that very same verse.
Now Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the rise of dawn. When the man saw that he could not overcome him, he struck Jacob's hip socket, so that Jacob's hip socket was wrenched at the man as the man wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, dawn is breaking." But then Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me."
We continue with the blessing after the Torah reading.
That's fine. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah et met. V'chayei olam nata betochenu, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. For our second aliyah, we have cousins Michelle, Michael, Stephen, and Brianna Razor, Tammy, Andrew, Brody, Seth, and Taylor Gittin.
Nala Amod, Hamishpacha Laliyah HaTorah.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu b'kol ha'amim noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vayomer Elav Mashmecha, Vayomer Yaakov, Vayomer Lo Yaakov, Yamer Od Shimcha Ki Im Yisrael, Ki Sarita Im Elohim, Be'im Anashim Vatuchol. Vayizrach Lo Hashemesh Kasher Avar Et Penuel, Vehu Solea Al Yerecho, Ki sarita im Elohim ve'im anashim vatuchol. Vayishal Yaakov. Vayomer hagidana shemecha. Vayomer lama zeh tishal lishmi. Vayvarech oto sham. The other said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." "No more shall you be called Jacob, but Israel," said the other, "for you have struggled with God and with human beings, and you have prevailed." Then Jacob asked, "Pray tell me now your name." But he said, "Why do you ask my name?" And then he took his leave of him.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'mfatenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Awesome job. Congratulations to each of you. You can actually stay up here, just on the other side of Cantor.
Vayikra. Sorry.
Ready to go. You are ready to it's like just ready to rock. All right. For our third Aliyah, we have the joy of calling up Joey Forsyte, Alex Kritzelis, and Carol and Steve Forsyte, aunts and uncles to Sarina.
Nala Amod, Hamishpaha Laliyah HaTorah.
Just a gentle reminder, the second line repeats. Second line repeats. I'll give you guys a count. 1, 2, 3.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach. Baruch Adonai Hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vayikra Yaakov Shem Hamakom Peniel Ki Ra'iti Elohim Panim El Panim V'tinatzel Nafshi Vayizrach Lo Hashemesh Kasher Avar Et Penuel Vehu Solea Al Yerecho Al Kain Lo Yochlu Bnei Yisrael Et Gid Hanasher Asher Al Kav Hayarech Ad Hayom Hazeh Ki Naga Bechav Yerech Yaakov Begid Hanasher. Jacob therefore named that place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared. The sun shone on him as he was leaving Penuel, and he was limping on account of his thigh. To this day, that is why people of Israel do not eat the thigh muscle that is in the socket of the hip, because he struck Jacob's hip socket at the thigh muscle.
Count of three. 1, 2, 3.
Amen.
You can actually stay here, just on the other side. You can't do it. Change your seats.
For our fourth Aliyah, we have the honor of calling up Michelle and John and Sydney Forsyte, Sarina's very proud parents and possibly proud siblings.
Nala Amod, Michal, Yochanan, Shoshana, Laliyah HaTorah.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamborach. Baruch Adonai hamborach leolam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamborach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vayisa Yaakov einav vayar vehine Esav ba ve'imo arba me'ot ish vayachatz et hailadim alea ve'al Rachel ve'al shetei hashvachot vayasem et hashvachot ved yaldehen rishona Ved Leah viladecha acharonim, ved Rachel ved Yosef acharonim, vehu avar lifnehem, vayishtachu artsa sheva pe'amim ad gishto ad achiv. Vayarotz Esav likrato, vayhavikehu, vayipol alt severa, vayishakehu, vayivku. When Jacob was looking into the distance, he beheld Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two maids. He placed the maids and their children in front, Leah and her children next, with Rachel and Joseph last. He himself went on ahead of them and bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. Esau, though, ran to meet him and embraced him, and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they burst into tears.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tofeinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Stay here, just on the other side. Ready to reject your seats.
Well, for our fifth and final Aliyah, we have the honor of calling up Sarina herself to the Torah. By nature of taking on this Aliyah, she takes her place in our community as a bat mitzvah.
Nala Amod, Nala Amod, Nala Amod, Habat Mitzvah, Sarah bat Yochanan ve'Michal, Laliyah HaTorah.
Baruch et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai hamborach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torah tov. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vayisa et einav vayar et hanashim ved hailadim vayomer mi'ele lach vayomar hailadim asher chanan Elohim et avdecha ותיגשנה השפחות, הנה בילדיהן, ותשתחוונה. ותיגש גם לאה וילדיך, ותשתחוו, ואחר ניגש יוסף ורחל, ותשתחוו. ויאמר מי לך כל המחנה הזה אשר פגשתי, ויאמר למסוכי בני ישראל. Adonai. When Esau looked around and saw the women and the children, he said, "Who are these? Yours?" Jacob answered, "The children with whom God has favored your servant." Then the lesser wives with their children approached and bowed down. Leah too approached with her children and bowed down. Afterward, Joseph and Rachel approached and bowed down. Esau said, "What is all this camp that I came across yours?" And Jacob replied, "Yes, it is all meant to find favor in the sight of my Lord." Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Well, we now have the honor of lifting and dressing our Torah, and so for the honor of lifting and dressing the Torah, I'd like to call up Sarina's cousins, Zachary and Jacqueline Forsyte, as well as for the honor of opening our ark, I'd like to call up Laura Doré, Rebecca and Stephen Moe, Sarina's grandparents, as well as Ellie and Mark Gordon. The rest of the congregation I'd like to invite to please rise in body or in spirit.
Vezot HaTorah, Vezot HaTorah, Vezot HaTorah, Asher Sa Moshe, Vezot HaTorah, Asher Sa Moshe, Livnei Bnei Yisrael, Livnei Bnei Yisrael. Vezot HaTorah, Vezot HaTorah, Vezot HaTorah, Vezot HaTorah. Vezot HaTorah, Vezot HaTorah, Al Pi Adonai beyad Moshe. Lai la 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 la, lai la 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 la, lai la 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 la, lai la 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 la, lai 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 la. Eitz Chaim Chil Machasikim Ba V'Tom Checha Me'ushar Derachecha Darchei Noam V'Chol Netivotecha Shalom Hashiveinu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadish, Chadish Yameinu Chadish Yameinu Kekedem.
So just as we ask our young people to teach us from the words of our Torah, we have further sacred scriptures in our canon. And so this morning we will hear as well from these scriptures. Sarina is going to be reading from the book of Hosea, bringing other words from the prophets to life by placing them on her lips. Words also that have been passed down for thousands of years, generation to generation. And this morning they are Sarina's. Before she begins, I'd like to invite everyone to please be seated. All right, do you want me to stay up here? You got it. Absolutely.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratzah v'divreihem hane'emarin ba'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Havoher batorav uv Moshe avdo uv Yisrael amo v'nvi'ei ha'emet b'tzedek. Ve'ami teluim lim shuvati ve'el all yikra'u yachad lo yeromeim eich eten ha-Ephraim amagen ha-Yisrael eich eten ha-Chedma asimecha kitzvoim nepach alai lebi Yachad nichmeru nichumai Lo e'eseh haron api Lo ashuv leshachet Ephraim Ki el anochi velo ish Behir becha kadosh Velo avo be'ir Aharech Yaakov Adonai Yilchu ke'aryeh yishag Kihu yishag Ve'yeherdu banim miyam.
We continue with the English translation of that very same reading.
My people are bent on turning from me. They invoke Baal on the heights, but he cannot lift them up. How can I give you up, Ephraim? How can I let you go, O Yisrael? How can I make you like Admah, or treat you like Zeboim? My heart has changed in me, all my pity stirs. I will not act upon my wrath. I will not turn to destroy Ephraim, for I am God, and no mortal, the Holy One in your midst. I will not come with anger. They shall follow the Eternal, who will roar like a lion. When God roars, children shall flutter from the west.
So before we go on to the prayer for after the Haftorah, I wonder if there's some way that we might just anticipate thinking about offering some sweetness that we might offer. So if you get a bit of sweetness either in your heart or in your hand, hold on to it for a second. It's going to become very relevant in just a moment. All right.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzur kol haolamim tzadik bechol hadorot ha'el hane'eman ha'omer ve'oseh hamedaber u'mkayem shekol devarav emet v'tzedek al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al hanvi'im Ve'al yom ha-Shabbat hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha ve'limnucha lechavod u'tif'aret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mevarchim otach Yitbarach Shimha befi kol hai tamid le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen. Now, in a moment like this, after Sarina has offered the Torah reading in such a profound way, and after she has offered the Haftorah reading in such an amazing way as she has taught us from these words, bringing them to life, literally word for word, there is a tradition of offering that same sweetness that we have received through her reading directly back to her. So if anybody has a particular bit of sweetness, first I'd like to invite us to say the words Mazel Tov on the count of three, and then why don't we share that sweetness with Sarina on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Mazel Tov!
Are you okay? Are you okay?
You okay? Bowled over with sweetness.
You did it.
That was awesome. That was like totally, that was a cool move.
Now, I will only say this once. If only there was someone who could come up and help us with all of these sweets that are all over the bima, and anyone else who is young at heart as well. Come on up. Come on up, you guys. Come on up. If someone could help us with all the sweetness that is here, that one is totally yours.
They're only good for one crowd. Yeah.
Is there a place where I can put this? Or here?
Put which there? Oh, the candy?
Huh? Oh, it's okay.
This is all yours, whatever you like.
Okay.
Just as we have the opportunity to learn from the literal words, we so too ask our students to teach us what these words mean to them, and so we have the opportunity to learn from Sarina this morning.
Shabbat Shalom, and thank you all for coming out to celebrate and support me on this momentous day. When I first received my Torah portion, I was told that it was one of the very famous ones and that I had plenty of material to interpret. But if I'm being honest, I really struggled with finding what I wanted to say, but I think I finally figured it out. The name of my Torah portion is Vaislach. The story begins in Jacob's cottage. On the verge of starvation, Esau collapses through the door after a long hunting trip. Jacob notices his brother at a weak point and takes it to his advantage. He makes a trade. If Jacob will give Esau some soup to save his life, Esau will hand over his birthright as the older brother. Esau accepts the trade, willing to do anything to live. Fairly soon after, Isaac, Esau and Jacob's father, falls ill and summons his eldest son Esau to his deathbed in order to give him his blessing. Just before Esau is about to get his blessing, Jacob sends him out to hunt for food. While Esau is away, Jacob disguises himself as Esau in order to receive his brother's blessing instead. After receiving the blessing, Jacob runs off to live a new life. Years later, Jacob has a family and a life of his own. Jacob soon realizes that he has to meet his brother again. The night before seeing him, Jacob wrestles with an Ish. It has never been revealed what Jacob really wrestled with that night, but what we do know is that Jacob comes out of the fight a different person. During the fight, Jacob's leg was pulled from its socket, making it extremely difficult to walk. Before the Ish leaves, Jacob asks it to bless him. The Ish blesses him, now naming him as Yisrael. Jacob is a new man. He sets out to meet his brother, accepting that whatever happens, happens. Once he sees his brother, he gets nothing but the biggest hug in the world. No harsh words, no fighting, just a hug. Overall, I think this whole portion has an aspect of forgiveness. It's about reflecting on what's more important, just like Esau did. He decided that his brother was more important than the inheritance and decided to forgive him. In addition, my interpretation of his misplaced leg socket is that he can no longer run away from his misdoings. He ran away when he stole the inheritance, but now he can't run away from meeting his brother and facing his own guilt. I too feel guilty. Growing up, I would always be jealous of those who had a more common religion. While I loved sitting with my congregation and singing at Sunday morning services and laughing with my friends in our classes, I never really appreciated being Jewish. But now, standing here today, not only am I proud to be here with my amazing family and friends, but I'm proud to be a bat mitzvah. I am proud to be Jewish. It makes me special in my own way, and although there might not be as many people at my school or in my community who share this special religion with me, I am feeling the most connected I've ever felt, not only to my Jewish family heritage, but to my own Jewish history. Over the course of my bat mitzvah studies, I've developed my Hebrew reading skills far more than I ever thought I could. Not only that, but through my mitzvah project working with National Charity League, I've connected more with the people around me. I've helped make blankets and decorate lunch bags for Meals on Wheels. I've also worked many hours in the thrift store, which donates all of its profits solely to charity. I'd like to say thank you to the Rabbi and Cantor for helping me to prepare for this special day. I'd like to thank my friends for always being there for me and showing up bright and early on a Saturday morning to celebrate with me. I'd also like to thank all my family who traveled near and far to join us today. I'd like to thank my sister for being so amazing and supportive throughout this whole process. I know we fight a lot, but in the end, you're my favorite person to laugh and spend time with. And lastly, I'd like to thank my amazing parents. I truly don't deserve you guys. You put so much effort every day for me to live this fulfilling, beautiful life I live. I can't thank you enough for putting up with me for these 13 years. I love you guys. Thank you, and mazel tov to me.
Well, just as, Sarina, you have been a gift to us, we want to offer some gifts to you this morning. And so it is my pleasure to call up Karen Ben Shmuel, a member of our board of directors, to present you with some gifts.
Mazel tov to me might be my new favorite thing ever. Well, you took one of my lines, which was Mazel tov. That was absolutely fantastic, how you led the service and how you read Torah. You were just confident and fantastic. And as an aside, just watching you smile throughout the entire service, how happy you are, and your parents and sister dancing in the aisle. I mean, that was just so beautiful and wonderful. I mean, honestly, it was really heartwarming. So Mazel tov.
Thank you.
On behalf of the board of directors, we have some gifts, and I'm told they're not here physically, so you can just imagine them wrapped here. From Sisterhood and Men's Group, we have some candlesticks, so you can continue to celebrate Shabbat in your home. From the temple, we have the Jewish Bible, the Tanakh translation, so you can continue and further your study of Torah. And from the Union for Reform Judaism, we have a $250 gift certificate for travel semester or summer programs to Israel. So I'm hoping you'll be able to use that someday.
Thank you.
So Mazel Tov again to you and your family and your supportive friends, and it was a wonderful day. So Mazel Tov.
Thank you.
Sarina, it's been so much fun to sit and learn and wonder with you. And I'm sure everyone in this room knows, but you are just as giggly and happy in when we're just meeting just the two of us as with everyone. You have this sweet love of life that is such a joy and is radiant and shines out to everyone around you. And so it was really, I really enjoyed sitting and wondering about your Torah portion. First of all, there's so much. And I don't know if you remember or not, you had two different stories that you were really excited about. So we found a way to get the reading so that you get some of one and part of the other. It's because you were so excited about reading, about wondering about this particular story. And of course, how one connects to the other, right? That you have this ish, whatever this ish is, that Jacob wrestles with, right? And eventually, we find out that it's Esau. Well, every time we look at this story, I think there's something different that we can learn from it. And there's something that I'd like to point out in this story for you this morning, Sarina. Jacob is in that moment before he's going to meet his brother again, right? And he's sitting there and he's wrestling, and we can all think of that moment as a moment where he's not sure what's going to happen the next morning. Some people, might even say, some scholars and actually some who were learning earlier this morning were saying, what if there actually isn't another Ish? What if the Ish is Jacob himself, and he's wondering? Other people have said it's an angel, and still others have said, like you've suggested, maybe it was Esau. Maybe it was Esau that he was wrestling with, either literally or even metaphorically. And there's something that, again, I want to point out for you in this particular story. When they start to go their separate ways, Jacob does something that is a little audacious, almost chutzpahdik, right? It's almost like wow, I can't believe he asked that, right? Jacob says, "You can go, but first you must bless me." And he receives a blessing. Now, I think that it's possible to see the person, as you mentioned, that he's with as Esau. And it is possible also to read the story of Jacob and not see everything as something to emulate. He does a lot of stuff that probably should not emulate, right? A lot of trickery, a lot of all kinds of stuff. But in this one moment, I think he shows something really, really amazing. And that is that he reaches out and asks for a blessing. And in the way that only stories can do, the story shares with us that he receives that blessing. It can be a little much to step out and say, "I'm asking for love and care. Can you please offer it?" This is my invitation for you, Sarina. I don't think this is going to be hard for you. Let us offer blessings for you. Because in the very same way that you offer that radiance, that glowing smile, and that love of life, we want to reflect that and share that with you as well. As you continue on into your adult years, don't forget to ask for blessings, whatever form that takes. Let yourself be blessed. Let us share the radiance that you have shared with us to you as well. And I know that we will all be brighter for it. Sarina, mazel tov. Congratulations. Mazel tov. Well, so we have more blessings for you this morning. And so I want to call up your parents, John and Michelle, to offer some blessings.
Do you want a tissue? Okay. I think I need my glasses. Okay, you ready? Right, Sarina, your dad and I have been looking forward to this moment since you started Hebrew school years ago, and we are so happy to share it with our family and friends today. Unlike your sister, who, because she is older and therefore went through this process before you, you have at times during the last almost 2 years now had her bat mitzvah in your mind as you go through your own studying and planning. As much as we have tried as parents to emphasize that we want you to have your own experience, whether it is for this spiritual rite of passage or anything else in your life, like a music performance, new class schedule, or birthday party, you have always had your sister before you to compare yourself against. And I think rather than pretending this is irrelevant or less important than it really is, we could today embrace the full moment of your experience as the second child. Second children are often talked about as being the pizzazz of the family. The wild card who comes into the already existing family structure to shake things up and stake their claim. You typify this kind of standout personality. As your dad was assembling the slideshow for your celebration party, I was struck by how many early photos and videos we have of you looking adoringly at your sister. In these early examples, you look content to be a supporting character in her story and happy to see her shine. Yet, sometime in the middle of your grade school years, we started to see a new pattern emerge in photos that feature you front and center, hamming it up for the camera, often in the foreground of a grouping of your sister and her friends. While you have never hesitated to show how attached you are to your sister, you also make your presence known. You truly delight in making an entrance, and I have always admired you for how you use your humor and charisma to entertain us. Your humor is generous, just like you. In other words, you use it to give back to people your joy in the world. Moreover, you often elevate other people by building on their jokes and thus making them feel loved and important. Your dad and I continue to be astounded by your playfulness and how you approach the ordinary challenges of life. You can make a piano scale sound like a personality, ordinary hygiene smell like a high-end spa, and packing for a trip resemble a curated travelogue. Your kindergarten teacher, the beloved Mrs. Otani, once had you redo a sorting assignment in which you were to divide socks by solids versus stripes. But as I was happy to notice, your mistake wasn't a mistake at all. What you had done was add a layer of complexity to the assignment by adding in a third category of polka dots. You had reimagined the assignment to your own design, and just like so many other moments in your life, I was so glad I didn't miss it. An even earlier memorable moment was when one of your first babysitters, when you and Sydney were still babies, said about you that unlike your sister, who would let everyone around her know if she didn't get the toy that she wanted, you would simply keep working around the problem to get closer to your goal. You have always been very determined, and that single-mindedness has sometimes been a point of conflict between us. It's only now, reflecting back on the intensity of our relationship, that I am beginning to realize this is most likely because you and I, maybe more than you and Sydney, mirror each other in this respect. Your drive to make the world reflect your vision for yourself feels very familiar to me. And so today, especially today, I want you to know, in addition to how much I adore you, which I think I tell you all the time, I also respect you. Your creativity, your originality, and your power as your own young woman. I love you very much, and I'm excited to be a part of your big life.
After listening to that, I've decided not to give my speech. It's great to have an English professor as a wife. So, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for coming. This is our second bat mitzvah, and I continue to foolishly follow Michelle, my beautiful wife, with our tributes. Thank you so much for being a wonderful mother. You bring so much emotional empathy and intelligence to raising our children. Given the demands of both of our jobs, I so appreciate the sacrifices you make to take such good care of Sarina and Sydney when I'm off at the symphony. Your incredible wisdom, your nurturing spirit, and playfulness have helped to shape our daughters in delightful ways. Sydney, I know being the older sister is not always easy, but I have seen you really step up and look out for Sarina at challenging times. I love looking at pictures of the two of you together, particularly when we're traveling. One of my favorite memories of the two of you is when you asked to go off on your own at the Tate Modern Museum in London when you were 10 and 12 years old. So Mom and I were really worried that you'd go off and have your own artistic adventure in a foreign city. About an hour later, we looked down from this 4-story atrium and we saw the two of you swinging on this interactive exhibit. And we thought, you both look so happy being free from us, exploring the world on your own. Sarina, we couldn't be more proud of you. With your beautiful voice and spirit, it was evident that you were connecting with the texts that you were reading. You have so many wonderful qualities in your tenderness, your love of style, your incredible sense of humor, and your musicality. Your generosity is evident when you stress over getting the perfect gift for your friends, often hand-picked items in a beautiful basket that you put together. When friends come over, you welcome them into your magical worlds that you create for them, including homemade spa experiences, photo shoots, video productions. You're a great student, and you've grown into a pianist who has a beautiful sense of phrasing and pacing. You've shown versatility playing boogie woogie to Beethoven. I remember that afternoon when we literally spent 3 hours to capture the perfect recording of a work of music. I was so proud of your perseverance as you never gave up. We know the work you had to do to arrive at this day was not easy for you. It was a new level of demand, and admittedly, some Jewish traditions may seem out of step with modern life. However, I hope that you can be in the moment today and reflect on the thousands of years of tradition and learning that has passed from generation to generation. Unlocking the meaning of your life can be aided by the rich heritage of the Jewish people. Your ancestors from Europe who made it here were survivors and struggled to adapt to American life. Their sacrifices have afforded us secure lives. You were named after an ancestor who was not so fortunate, your great-aunt Lucia from Warsaw. She died during the Holocaust, but she was remembered as a beautiful, soulful, warm, musical personality. She owned a rare 17th century violin, and your grandparents remember her playing Mendelssohn. Undoubtedly, you have captured her spirit. Sarina, you brought such great joy to our lives. We give thanks for the privilege of your growing up to be an incredible young woman. You are intelligent and compassionate. You have the courage to stand up for your beliefs and a sense of fairness. You are creative, and we hope you'll continue to be an independent thinker. Remember that when you come with an idea that others think is impossible, you may be onto something really important. We hope that you find something you are passionate about, follow your own path, and use your talents to do something remarkable that will make a difference. Even though you are now free to make more decisions on your own, slowly on your own, you still have us, your family, and your community to be here to help you when you get stuck. You have a wealth of love and knowledge sitting right here celebrating you and your life. Remember to live each day to the fullest. Time is a non-renewable resource. Take time to appreciate the moment, to find peace and faith within you. Continue to use your great sense of humor to keep things in perspective. And as you go through the ups and downs of adolescence, I hope you know in your heart that we have a profound love for you and will always be there for you. To close, I would like to thank all of you for coming today. This bat mitzvah was originally scheduled in June, and no doubt would have been fully virtual. Your presence means the world to us and our loved ones watching virtually. We thank you for your support from afar. Sarina, look around this room today and remember how many wonderful friends and relatives are here to support you. The fact that you've held on to dear friends throughout your life is a testament to the loyalty people show you. To quote your loving grandfather, Papi, he used to tell us, "Don't worry, if you need me, we'll be right there. And take a sweater." Speaking of which, bring warm clothing tonight if you're coming to the party. That was my insert. We wish to thank Sarina's teachers at the Torah Center, Rabbi Fox and Cantor Cooper. Beautiful voice, beautiful expressions of affection and spirituality. We also appreciate the synagogue's lay leadership who work tirelessly, and I want to thank Karen for coming today. Now, Sarina, I have one last word of advice. Always be generous to the synagogue. And with that in mind, I want to close with a short parable from the Talmud. A man walks into a synagogue with his dog. He goes up to the rabbi and he says, "Rabbi, I want my dog to have a bat mitzvah, and I want to do it here." And the rabbi says, "What, are you crazy? I can't do that here." The man says, "Please, I'll do anything." The rabbi says, "No, it can't be done." Finally, exclaims the man to the rabbi, "I don't think you understand. I'm willing to donate $20,000 to the synagogue." To which the rabbi says, "I don't think I knew that your dog was Jewish." All right. Sarina has laughed at my bad jokes in her entire life. Mazel tov and thank you.
That's from the funny as it was beautiful. I actually want to invite the two of you to stand on either side of Sarina. I'm going to offer a blessing. Sarina, there is a blessing that comes to us. This one actually is from the Torah. And it's been passed down for generations and generations. Literally, parents offering these words and clergy offering these words to people in sacred moments in their lives. This morning, these words are for you.
Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless and keep you.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
May God's face be turned towards you in graciousness.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May God always watch over you, and may you be blessed with that greatest of gifts, that gift of peace. I invite us together to say, Amen.
Amen.
Well, as in moments such as this, when we celebrate a powerful and profound moment in our lives, that resource, that moment, that time that cannot be renewed, and so we take it fully in this moment. We offer the words Shehechianu. I'd like to invite Sydney to come up and join us as we offer these words of thanks for this time, this moment.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen.
Well, as we continue our service, we will now offer the words of Aleinu, which are on page 282. Page 282 of our prayer books, and I'd like to call up to help us open the Ark this morning Sarina's aunt and uncle Carol and John Lesh, as well as cousins Joe and Kala Dore, and Kathy and Eric Fazio. The rest of the congregation I'd like to invite to please rise in body or in spirit.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leyotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu kimishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam. Va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu. Bayom hahu Adonai echad u'shemo 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 echad.
Please be seated. Our thoughts now turn to those in our community who have died in recent days or in this season in years past. And so for those of us who are joining online, if you are on tilb.org on the live stream link, I invite you to share the names of those you might be thinking of this morning in the chat now. Together, our hearts go out to those who are observing Shiva and Shloshim, observing the 7 and 30 days after the death of someone near to them. And so together we think of those near to Rhoda Priestman. We think of Heather Raphael. We think of those near to Dorothy Hartstein. We think of those near to Evelyn Hyman. We think of Heather Raphael. We think of those near to Percy Morris. We think of Aaron and Andrea. We think of those near to Evelyn Human. We think of Heather. We think of those near to Ellie Brooks. We think of Rochelle and Jim, Kylie, Brooke, and Grant, and Mattingly. And we think of those near to Leonora Weber. We additionally mark the yard site, the anniversary of the death of Louis Adler, Amalia Appel, Sarah Aaron, Henry Berman, James Bollingmo, Tabitha Cohen, Sadie Dover, Donald Eisner, Dan Finkel, Marion Finley, Anna Gallus, Lori Grove, Richard Larger, Arnold Lander, David Lander, Esther Lander, Bertha Levin, Reggie Levy, Rose Miller, Lillian Muehlberg, Ida Nahum, Pat O'Connor, Mary Pomper, Pamela Ratner, Fred Rayer, Shirley Shane, Michelle Sloan, Rachel Tsipkis, Rose Warren, Jean Weil, Robert Weinblatt, and Harry Wolf. If there's anyone that you are thinking of and you'd like to share their name aloud so that we can all hold that person in our hearts, I invite you to share their name as my eyes meet yours, as my eyes pass across our sanctuary this morning. This morning, Sarina and her family would also especially like to call to mind Alex and Marie Forsyte and Astora Mo. I'd like to invite all of us to turn to page 294 of our prayer books. Page 294. I'd also like to invite us to rise in body or in spirit as we offer these traditional words of mourning. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, be'alma divrach chiyutei ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chay dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam olmel maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudisha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbachata v'nechamata, Damiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba mit shemaya, v'chaim alinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'asei shalom, alinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tebel, v'imru, amen. Zichronam livracha, may the memories of those near to us always be a source of blessing. I invite us together to say,
Amen.
amen. Well, as with any time we are allowing ourselves to come to a place of sorrow, we always place what is called a nechemta in that sorrow. And so too did the authors of our mourner's prayer offer nechemta at the very end of it. A moment of sweetness, something to lift us out of this moment. And so I invite us to offer the words together, Osei Shalom B'Mromav. May we find the inspiration to bring peace, and may we find peace in our world. The words are at the very bottom of that very same prayer.
Osei Shalom B'Mromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Imru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Osei Shalom B'Mromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Imru Amen. Shabbat Shalom,
Hey,
Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom.
Well, as we take the moment, the sweetness of this moment, we place it right there on our lips, knowing that ritual is so often not just a reminder, but an expression of the feelings that we have. And so we take the sweetness and place it right there in our cups. So I'd like to invite Sarina and her family back up to the podium as we offer this blessing over this sweetness, as well as the blessing over this day. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. L'chaim, l'chaim, as we say, it's a good month. Is it Manischewitz? Yeah.
We don't do wine well in the Jewish church.
Yeah, well, it's, I like to think maybe as we lead our young people into an expression of adult living that we maybe turn them off to wine for a little bit. All right, well, let's offer a blessing for our motzi, or our challah, the motzi blessing, knowing that in the blessing it says, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, bread rising from the earth, but we know full well that bread does not rise from the earth, rather wheat rises from the earth. And there is a whole chain of work that goes into bringing this bread to our table. So too is there a whole chain of lifting up and a whole circle, a whole community that brings a moment such as this. And it is with both that we bless this morning. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, b'tei avon. Mazel tov, everyone. Shabbat shalom. We'll have more celebration just outside with some kiddush and challah. Mazel tov and Shabbat shalom, everyone.
And family that didn't get a photo with Sarina after the kiddush, come back into the sanctuary. Thank you.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
That was so awesome.
Thank you. Congratulations, you guys. Well done.
Nobody's.
I completely lost my spot. I was like,
That's okay, because you just kept going.
it's
Yeah,
okay.
so I want to tell you this, right? So, when we're talking about, it's just a celebration. There aren't any mistakes. So, let's be real. There was a moment where you jumped in the court with it.
I went to another.
Okay, thank you. No problem. Nice spirit. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you. Just because they want to celebrate. Go have fun.
That's important. Thank you for being here.
Much love.
Thank you.
This wonderful program. Pretty difficult. Your smile.
Poor thing, we did a COVID test before. This thing, it was like,
To get to just be sitting and probably look at
she was not upset.
the nose was sick.
Anyway, she was good.
It's last 3 weeks.
We only read that.
Mitzvahs on us. Like one other for the next week. Yeah. This is kind of the incredible.
Congratulations.
Thanks for warning.
This is wonderful. She did great. I love her smile.
To celebrate with you.
So much fun with her. That's very
Always.
much fun.
Yeah. Serina, Serina kept it quick, but she just does. The beautiful Serina is such a
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's such a great sense of humor.
yeah.
This was
giggling and laughing the whole way through.
Amanda's an old son. Very old.
So what's your connection to Serina then?
Well, we're good friends with John. Wonderful.
Oh, is that right? It's like we're wrapped in a towel.
He's responsible for that.
I actually
So
thank you, Leona. It takes Leona to come up. See you tonight. That means
Bye-bye. You did absolutely a wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
We're going to go out
Very, very much.
Where did you go to school?
For rabbinical school, I went to New York, the New York campus of the Hebrew Union College.
Okay.
I was thinking about you.
Well, I support HBC in LA.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm on the board of advisors on him change, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we're not what we were. And so you did a wonderful job, and the spirit was great, and you have a nice.
Well, you know, when I got out to Indianapolis, I was in Indiana for a couple of years. I'm from here, but I have a good friend who teaches. You might know him, Ken Cantor.
Familiar.
So he insisted that I go out to Cincinnati, and I gave a couple of guest lectures and things like that. You know, I've just been kind of getting my bearings, and everything is kind of topsy turvy right now with the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I do hope eventually to be able to connect in one way or another with the LA campus.
I want you to connect with them. I started the mentoring program there, and it's a wonderful campus. And
beautiful.
Josh Follow is the dean there, and he's from Cincinnati.
Oh, hey, we won't hold it against him being in LA and being from Cincinnati.
Yeah, but it's just great.
So
Just great. Your temple is wonderful, and you're both very welcoming. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you for doing the work of being on the.
Oh yes, that is.
It's a gift.
It is. It's special
I'm guessing.
for us to be together as Jews.
Amen.
Amen. Right? Okay.
Picking up stray cans. I saw one.
they're floating.